Joining us. We're about to start another live episode of the Never Again Live podcast, brought to you by Israel Now. We're going to discuss the fact that on Erev Rosh Hashanah, while we were praying on the Temple Mount and marching towards the Temple Mount, our holiest site, on one of our holiest days, Hamas supporters, Palestinians, chose to throw firebombs and rocks at those of us who were worshiping. Directly at the Jews on the Temple Mount. So what happened was Palestinian youths locked themselves inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque and proceeded to launch fireworks and hurl rocks when the Jewish worshippers arrived. And I'm not sure, you can correct me on this, but that doesn't look like a particularly threatening crowd of Jews. And this is what they face when we make this simple attempt to pray. And you could hear the jeering and the cheering and the comments in the background aimed at our worshipers. Oh, but I thought it was very nice. Here we have a group of Palestinians who chose to celebrate Rosh Hashanah with us, so they're bowing down and praying in respect to our holiday. We wish that's what they were doing. And those are the young Palestinians who I'm sure are congratulating and wishing us a happy Rosh Hashanah on the Temple Mount. Unfortunately, that's not at all what transpired. Quite the opposite. This is Erev Rosh Hashanah. Again, absolutely incredible. That's what the Palestinians do on our holiest week of the year. So with us this evening in Israel to discuss this event and other events is Rabbi Yehuda Levi, who studied Talmudic law in America, then went to the Mir Yeshiva in Jerusalem in Talmudic studies. He received his rabbinic ordination from the Center for Kehillah Development, and he helped found Yeshivat Har HaBayit and Kollel Drishat Zion, where he currently serves as the Director of Outreach. Also with us this evening, once again, is Melissa Jane Kronfeld, who completed undergraduate studies at George Washington University, received a Master's in Global Affairs at NYU, and her PhD after that. She's an expert on foreign policy and national security and widely published and has appeared on over a dozen television and radio programs. She served in a leadership position on many boards, and she launched the Passion for a Purpose. We have Dr. Kronfeld, who I see she's only been on once before, and somehow I managed to get her name wrong, either in pronunciation or in spelling, but we'll work on it. We'll just call her Dr. M, since I'm Dr. B. We also have with us today Rabbi Levi, who we introduced, and I'm going to put you guys on the screen. I'm going to be over here in the corner and just, I guess, first discuss the incident on Rosh Hashanah. Then we can discuss Lapid's speech at the United Nations, and then we'll discuss whatever you want to talk about, particularly tell our audience all about the High on the Har that you all have founded together. So, Rabbi Levi, why don't you first take it away?
Okay, I'll be happy to. Just wanted to start off, and of course, devastating news with Meir, and that's really, really sad that that he's going through that, and it's never easy when a family member passes away. So I would like to take a moment to say a quick prayer in his memory. You mentioned the name. I think you said it was Pesach ben Pinchas. Did I get that correctly?
Okay. Pesach ben Pesach.
Pesach ben Pesach. All right.
Exactly.
All right. So, if you don't mind, I will say something. This is something we say on the Har as well. So, this is something that we, whenever unfortunately we have bad news and we need to share a prayer, this is the prayer that we say. המרחם על כל בריאותיו הוא יחוס ויחמול וירחם על נפש, רוח ונשמה של פסח בן פסח, רוח אדוני תניחנו בגן עדן, הם וכל בני ישראל השוכבים עמם בכלל הרחמים והסליחות, וכן יהי רצון ונאמר אמן. Okay. It's hard to switch tracks that easily, but I'm going to try to do my best to answer your original question about what happened on Rosh Hashanah. So this year, as many people may not have realized, what we have been doing over the last few years is significantly making the changes, quietly, but with perseverance of making changes on the Temple Mount in terms of the Jewish freedoms that are going on there. And one of the things that is happening is the fact that we're able to, congregate as a tzibur and actually pray. So we had this year, this is not the first year that this has happened, but we've had this year a complete minyan for both Shacharit and Musaf on Har Bayit, as well as Mincha for Rosh Hashanah, which is incredible to think about it, that for how many years we were in the exile, and even once the Temple Mount was returned to our hands in 67, how many times can that statement be said that there was a full minyan of Shacharit and Musaf on Har Bayit, in the palace of God, in the premier place of prayer, on the day that is designated for us to crown the king, the king of all kings, and to do so in his palace. What a zchut, and that was an incredible experience to be a part of. At the same time, our erstwhile cousins made sure that we received a wonderful welcome. It took them a while. The police did not let us up immediately. Normally, we're let up at 7 o'clock in the morning as soon as the gates open. It took them on the first day till 7:45 till they were able to clear out enough of a walkway for us. I noticed almost all the brass of the police. I mean, that shows how much importance the Israeli government places on the Temple Mount. It was not low-level soldiers. I don't think the lowest rank on the Temple Mount of that day was anything lower than a major. That's how high-ranking all the police officers that were on the Har to deal with that situation, including Doron Torjuman, who is the head of the police in all of Jerusalem, and also Kochavi, I believe his name is the one who's in charge of the entire country. He was there as well. Not just the regular high brass of the Temple Mount itself. There were definitely a lot of shouts of Allahu Akbar, primarily on the southern side. So the way we walk is, as soon as we get up by the Kotel, we made a left turn, and then right before the platform, we made a right turn. If you're familiar with the geography, you would understand what I'm saying. But basically, we, instead of going straight like we normally would and walk right next to the Al-Aqsa Mosque on our way towards the east, we instead sort of made a left and walked alongside the Kotel on the other side, and then made a right and cut in between the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. Obviously, we're well within the confines of halakha, of where it's halakhically permitted to be. And we walked, while we walked through that area, there's a lot of police on either side of us, and a lot of Arabs standing there shouting Allahu Akbar. There was one or two fireworks that were shot out of the Al-Aqsa Mosque when my group was there, but that was very, very few and far between. They managed to really crack down this time around and not stop it. Oh, there you see. So you can see, I'm actually probably in this video, although I can point out I'm wearing my kittel somewhere over there. Well, not that video, but as you saw, we were walking right alongside the platform. That's where we were able to walk in. And when we were walking there were a lot of people screaming, but the police did an amazing job keeping the rioters at bay. And by the next day, things were significantly toned down as well. Because they made a lot of arrests. They definitely took people off the mountain. The next day was very quiet. We had a much more enjoyable experience, although there were definitely still people there yelling Allahu Akbar at us. But once we got past that small area on the Temple Mount, the rest of it was smooth sailing. There was quiet. It was peaceful. We were able to pray with Chazarat Hashat, with Birkat Kohanim, with everything that we normally do on a regular daily basis. And if we're talking about status quo, this is the status quo for at least the last 5 years that I'm familiar with. So, and of course, Dr. Kronfeld has experienced that as well. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to her. But the experience on Rosh Hashanah was amazing. We're looking forward to the experience on Yom Kippur and Sukkot as well. So, Dr. Kronfeld, take it away.
Thank you, Rabbi Levi, and I share in your heartfelt message to Mayor. We will miss him tonight, and I hope him and his family will be comforted amongst the mourners of Zion in the coming days, weeks, and may his uncle be his memory be a blessing to all who knew him and all who didn't. And so we're grateful for still having us on tonight. I want to kind of pick up a bit where Rabbi Levi left off. I think there's a couple of important things to mention outside the specific context of Rosh Hashanah itself. The first is that this is our normal holidays on the Mount. You know, if you were to come with us any other time during the major Jewish holidays or festivals, you're going to have an extremely quiet experience. You're going to have a very normal ascension. You know, ascension is normal. You're ascending to the house of God, but you're going to have a very quiet ascension generally, and that's important to note for two reasons. Because one, the Arabs and the Palestinians choose these days. They want to disrupt these days when, in fact, they could disrupt every day. They could disrupt any day. But they choose these specific days because they know the cameras are rolling and they know that it's important to us. What does that tell you about them? Temple Mount's not that important. If the Temple Mount was as important to them as it is to us, they would be up there rioting each and every single day. They would be preventing our ascension every day. They would be delaying the opening of the gates every single day. But they don't care. They don't care. They know that's on those days that the cameras are going to be rolling, that the BBC, the Al Jazeera, the AFP, the International Press, the New York Times, they're going to be there that day. And the expectation is, as we like to say on the Har, you know, if the camera lights are on, then it's showtime, not for us, but for our Arab brothers and sisters. And what's equally important to mention about that is that when the cameras go off, so do the riots. As I mentioned, a regular ascension day, and we are ascending each and every single day. This doesn't happen. And I think that really is a testament to the fact that this is performative. It's what, the catchphrase has been Hollywood. This is Hollywood at its height. Let's scream, let's shout, let's throw rocks. Only when we know we can get attention for it. Because if they wanted to fight for the Temple Mount, then they would carry on that fight each and every single day, because we as heck do. We carry on that fight each and every single day. It's also important to note, as Rabbi Levi pointed out, is that the police presence was quite heavy. And, you know, some people may interpret that as a response to the Arab and Palestinian rioting. I don't think so, actually. I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's a response to us. I think it's a response to the Jews. They don't need a massive police force to quell what is a few kids throwing some rocks and pretending that they're hardcore jihadists when they go home and their mom is cooking them dinner. What it is a testament to is the fact that they know we are gathering at the bottom in greater numbers each and every single day, and each and every single holiday. Our numbers are growing, they're swelling, they're massive, the lines are extensive. And the police know that they have two options. They can deal with the riots on the top of the mount, or they can deal with the riot on the bottom of the mount, because we're going to go up no matter what is going on up there. And so I would say a year or even 2 years ago, when I would ascend on the holidays, that police presence wasn't necessarily there. I don't think it was because the riots were any different. It was because they didn't have to respond to the demands of the ascenders, the Jewish worshipers, the Jewish people, the Israelis, the visitors, the people who are going to pray to God on this holy, holy days. And they know that we are demanding our ascension, and that they have to be there now to respond, because we are present, and we are really, really forcing their hands. So, you know, I look at these videos, I look at these holidays, and you know, to me, it's I hate to say it, but it's the same every holiday. This is, and not to belittle the point of the show or the topic that we're doing today, but this is just how the holidays are. And the rest of the days are just not like that. So I think that's important to keep in mind for your audience too, especially for people who maybe haven't gone or are fearful of going. You know, the media doesn't come up with us daily. They don't show our prayer services, our quiet walks, our peaceful, serene mornings, our warm or rainy or snowy afternoons. They only show up when our Arab brothers and sisters are having temper tantrums. And that's a shameful thing. It's interesting, Mayor, that I'm sorry, Dr. B, that you used a video where you can actually see there's a green door at Al-Aqsa Mosque, and you can see that there's a lattice, a half circle lattice that they're throwing things through. Something your audience may or may not know is that I think there's 4 or 5 lattices. Rabbi Levi probably knows better than I do. I think it's 4, maybe 5, that are in a row, green doors with these beautiful white lattices on top. And where you see them throwing things through, it's actually the only door that they throw things through. Because I guess you couldn't say ironically, but funny enough is that they choose every single time to only break. The other windows are not broken. If they wanted to get us off the mountain, break every window, throw things through every door, cause a riot. I'm happy to show you what a riot looks like. That's not a riot. That's a bunch of kids, throwing stones and pretending, like I said, that they're hardcore jihadists, but they're not. And so if you go up there, everything is intact except that one window. And after a while, I guess the Temple Mount authorities, the ones stopped fixing that one window, because every single time they would just break that one window. So now it's basically it's just left open. But I just, as a final note, I just want to add that I know that if I had a building so nice, and I had a complex so gorgeous, and I had books so holy, I would not be throwing them at anybody. Because the Jews care about the Temple Mount, whether our Muslim brothers and sisters are praying there, whether our Christian friends are praying there. We care about that place. And you'll never see a Jew pick up a rock or a holy book or anything of that sort and throw it at anybody. And I think that's what's important to remember. Really, at the end of the day, if they cared so much about the Temple Mount, they would either really throw a riot and shut it down, or they would treat it with the respect and sanctity that place deserves.
Wow. Yeah. I'm talking about the just building off the point that you brought up, Dr. Kronfeld, about the police response to the worshipers. We would be remiss if we would not focus on what is going on a little bit behind the scenes in that regard as well. And I'll start off with the following statement, because I believe it to be true. The police really do care about our safety on the Temple Mount, and they take their jobs incredibly seriously. And it's not an easy place to be a police officer. The amount of hate they get from the other side is incredibly hard. And the world is always looking at the Temple Mount as a flash pan, as something that could always ignite what the terrible World War III or whatever nonsense, that the way they look at it as such. So there's a lot of pressure to be there. That being said, there has been an underground campaign within the police brass to target and punish the regulars who have been pushing the envelope, and helping make the changes that have been going on at the Temple Mount over the last few years. So as I mentioned, one of the things that we do is have a silent prayer. It doesn't bother anybody. It's hard to even tell that we're praying unless you're very familiar with religious Jewish culture. And one of the very many important things to do on the Temple Mount is prostration. That's an important mitzvah. It's a very important part of the service that is done there by people when they go up to the Temple Mount. Over the last couple of months, there have been more and more people doing it, and the police sort of cracked down on it, not sort of cracked down on it. Now they're taking a very, very hard-handed approach to anybody who even goes against, makes a toe out of line. And they're taking regulars who have built relationships with the police officers and taking them off, slapping them with a restraining order for disturbing the peace, and giving them restraining orders for up to 6 months, which is just despicable. And we're not talking about offenses that actually are creating disturbing of the peace. We're talking about people who are doing things that nobody even noticed. Maybe a police notice out of the corner of their eye of a person doing what he wants to do, what is required by the Torah mitzvahs to do. The fact that we can't even have freedom of worship is against every fiber of the laws of this land. It is religious discrimination at its worst, that Jews cannot serve God in their own holiest site, whereas the Arabs in their supposed third holiest site are able to play soccer and have picnics on the Temple Mount. And for us, for them, if they break the law, which is they're not allowed to play soccer on the Temple Mount, if they are caught doing so, what happens is the ball gets confiscated and they just have to get it back from the police at the entrance. But if, God forbid, a Jew does, just bends a little bit in prayer, which is the natural way people would pray by, moving to and fro. If someone would do that on the Temple Mount, that warrants a 6-month suspension from the Temple Mount, and being taken off and treated with disrespect. I don't, as I said, I have no ill will to the police. I believe they do their job, and it's a very hard place for them to do it. But this targeting from, shall we call it, the deep state, from, I'm not even sure where it's coming from, how high up in the government it's coming from, but the total trampling on the religious freedom must be called out and must be stopped. It's a real shame that it's going on, and we hope that hopefully soon a new government will come in that will put a stop to this. But it doesn't stop us from calling out when even a government that is not technically right should not, if they truly believe in freedom for all their citizens, we call on the political leadership to stop this immediately.
I'll echo Rabbi Levy's original sentiments. It is certainly difficult to be a police officer on Har HaBayit. Not only because our brothers and sisters make their life quite difficult, sometimes we make their life a little difficult too. But with that said, that goes without saying with every human rights struggle, every time activists work in passive resistance and civil disobedience. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, I recently had my birthday, and me and Rabbi Levy ascended on my birthday. Actually, I think I ascended before Rabbi Levy. It was the first ascension of the morning. And in the first ascension, I was verbally confronted, and there, I don't want to say I was attacked because I was not attacked physically, but it was very close. I think maybe if another second or two had gone by, it probably would have turned physical. But I had a very serious confrontation actually with a member of the Dirty Waf on the Har. And unfortunately, I don't know if because they're so used to us going around or because these things don't usually happen, the response from the police, unfortunately, was quite lax. I had the confrontation lasted probably upwards to 20, 25 seconds, which is a long time when you're a female standing alone, nose to nose with an Arab male screaming at you. And I only point out that story not because I want any sympathy, I stood my ground and I showed no fear, but I share that story because afterwards, the police officers, particularly one doesn't speak English so well, made a point of going over to one of my friends and speaking to her for a solid 4 or 5 minutes and expressing to her how upset he was that he had failed to immediately react. Not him personally, but that the group up there had not responded quick enough. They had allowed that 20-second or so period to go by. He said to her, please express to her sympathies. I would never let anything happen to her. I am here to protect and defend her. I will do anything, to make sure you guys are okay. Of course, that was followed by then being reprimanded for being Jewish on the Har and having the confrontation. But nonetheless, when my friend conveyed his sentiments to me, she was extremely sincere when she told me that he was very, very upset about what had happened and about my thought that maybe he had not done his job correctly in securing me. And so that's very important to point out. With that said, this is up there is sort of like a mafia movie, like at the end of a mafia movie when the police do a large sweep and they take out the dope boy all the way to the boss man. They have just been left and right, every single person, old, and new. They've targeted rabbis in their 70s. They, a couple of weeks ago, they separated a 12 or 13-year-old boy who had done a full prostration from his parents. Not that far, but enough that made me visibly nervous, and I'm sure made his parents visibly nervous. He was staying on one side of the fence while his parents were on another, and he was being spoken to by a police officer without his parents present, which was outrageous. They have arrested four bad Danish guides. Our friends at the nonprofit Bad Danish, probably the most critical nonprofit, fighting for rights and equal access alongside us on the HAR. One of whom I don't think I've ever even seen raise his voice above a whisper on the HAR, or let alone, if you knew this young man, Roy, you would know he's the most mild-mannered, kindest, gentlest creature. If I was going to compare him to an animal, it'd be like he's a butterfly. He's a gentle soul, and the only time he really prays, and it's remarkable, is when we descend from the heart. He leads us in prayer after we exit the final gate. He is the one that leads us in song and prayer with his beautiful voice. But I don't even think he would ever dream of doing such a thing on the car. He's such like a stickler for the rules. He's such a good human being. He was arrested the other day. We believe at last count there's been about 35 arrests in a single month. 35 arrests of Jews, not Arabs, not Palestinians, not Christians, not guests, not tourists. 35 Jews have been arrested. And when I say arrested, I mean taken off the HAR and either detained or given a restraining order. Our friends, our rabbis, our activists, our sidekicks, gender, age, nothing has at all defined what this group is. They've just decided to hit the regulars, not our guests, not the people that are, sent from time to time. Each and every single one of these arrests has been a person that ascends daily or weekly. Rabbi Levi and I have unfortunately not been swept up in this mess quite yet. I often wonder if it's because they know that we're extremely vocal and we have the opportunity to engage audiences on platforms like this. And I sure know that I would be quite vocal if this happened to me. But even one of a doctor, one of the doctor that ascends with us on a daily basis, very prestigious doctor here in Israel, who goes up, and I don't think I've ever even seen him move his body. I don't think I've ever seen him move his lips, to be honest. He doesn't even talk to anybody. He keeps his hat low, he looks forward, he walks quickly, he abides by every single rule. He was taken down just today. And it's, as Rabbi Levi said, it's a fundamental abrogation of our human rights. It's against the freedom of worship that's enshrined in the Israeli law, international law, and we have to call it out. Enough is enough. No one really knows, as Rabbi Levi pointed out, where it's coming from or why it's happening. I certainly would believe it probably has a lot to do with September and October being big holiday months. And they probably wanted to kind of, I don't want to say put the fear of God, because the only person that we fear is God, and we're on the mount. So we know that we've got a direct connection, and we are not going to put a fear of God in me or Rabbi Levi. Only God can do that. But with that said, I think they wanted to try to shake some trees and rattle some souls and let us know that nothing is going to be tolerated during the holidays. But with all due respect to the authorities on high, wherever they are, and to the Israel police, if there's one thing that the regulars are extremely good at, in fact, is that ensuring that the holidays are some of the smoothest times ever. Knowing that there's large groups, knowing that the danger is increased, knowing that the cops have to have more of their ranks up there, knowing that the riot police are standing by the gate ready to jump in if they have to. In fact, it is only the regulars that maintain the peace up there within the groups. You'll see a regular ascender go up to maybe a boy who came down from the hilltop who's super excited and screaming Shema. Tell him, listen, we all want to make it through this ascension together. Let's say Shema, but let's do it while we walk. Or we'll be the first person to intervene if there's a conflict between a cop and somebody who's there, just for this holiday. So actually, what they've done, they've shot themselves quite literally in the own foot, because we, the regular ascenders, are their best allies. We are their best friends. We know the rhythm, the movements, we know how it works up there. We know who the cops are, and we are able, especially on the holidays, to facilitate the opportunity for everyone to ascend and pray. And by taking us out, it's just going to make it more difficult for them to do their job when the throngs of people who don't know how it works up there, who don't have the regular flow of the mount, who don't know the cops and think that maybe a harsh word from a particular police officer is an extremely, horrible act, and then they respond, in an equally awful way. And we know that maybe that's just how the officer speaks. He tends to be a bit grumpy, or we know that he's having a bad week because he just had a baby. He probably hasn't had a lot of sleep. And so at the end of the day, what I would ask our friends in the Israel police and the authorities up on high to consider is that if we want to work together and make the Temple Mount a place that is safe for everybody, regardless of the restrictions on prayers on Jews right now, we are the ones that will help you do that. We are the ones that are leading this charge, and you are better served by having us there than having us detained or talking to the media and down with restraining orders or standing at the bottom rallying up crowds because they're angry and frustrated. No, we are the ones that are best suited to make the holidays a unique experience for everyone and smooth sailing for the police. And it's shameful. It's just shameful what has happened. Of course, I don't know that it was about the holidays, but and you can suspect that given that it's been the crackdown happened in 3 to 4 weeks directly before the holidays, I would have to assume that was part of the consideration. But with that said, I think it's also important to talk about the holidays just in general. And, we have a festival coming up in just a week. It's so exciting. And as I'm sure many of your listeners and watchers know, there are 3 festivals where we are supposed to go to the Temple Mounts and give our offerings and celebrate God. And even though it's always wonderful over the mountain, it's especially special on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. In fact, the Temple, there are 3 festivals in our faith that revolve around the Temple Mount. And I thought maybe Rabbi Levi could give us kind of a little bit of background on Sukkot and the Temple Mount.
Yeah, of course, it'd be my pleasure. Sukkot, as we know, the Torah tells us that there are 3 times a year that one should visit the Temple Mount. It says, Shalosh pamim b'shana yireh et kol zchurcha et pnei Hashem Elokecha. 3 times a year you should see the face of Hashem your God, b'makom asher yivchar, in the chosen place that was set aside. That's referring to Jerusalem, as is explained. B'chag hamatzot, during the Pesach festival. B'chag hashavuot, during the Shavuot, u'b'chag haSukkot, and also b'chag haSukkot. The service, the main, before the temple was destroyed, the main function of the holiday was actually the temple and the service in the temple. We know a lot from the Mishnah that tells us all about what took place there. A lot of the things that we do today, including lulav and etrog, were the main place of doing that was inside the temple. So much so that they did it even when Sukkot fell on Shabbat. As some of your religious listeners know, that if you're living in Canada and the first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbat, you do not take the lulav and etrog on that day, but in the temple you did. As a matter of fact, the Mishnah tells us that people would bring their lulavim and etrogim to the Temple Mount. They would actually place it in the basilica that was built by Herod, and it was quite a fun experience of getting all those lulavim and etrogim to the rightful owners the next morning. But that was a main part of the service. The things that we do during Sukkot, during the prayer services, called Hashanos, or Hashanot, when we go around the Bima with our lulav and etrogim, that's actually a thing that took place in the temple. And there was a special thing that was that every day they would take an arava branch and they would go around the Mizbeach, the altar in the temple. Another thing that's very famous about Sukkot was the Simchat Beit HaShoeva. Many of you are familiar throughout the world. There'll be plenty of Simchat Beit HaShoevot. All those are a far cry from the beauty and splendor that took place in the temple. The Mishnah is profuse in its statement that whoever did not participate in the Simchat Beit HaShoeva in the temple never saw happiness in his life. That's how strongly the Talmud references this idea of happiness that took place. The partying would go up from nightfall till the morning. People didn't sleep on the Chag. There's a reason why the Mesilat Yesharim, Rabbi Lazzaro writes that the Chagim are Lamala min Azman. They're above time and space. And whether he means that on a Kabbalistic sense is something that we're not going to touch into right now. But when you were there during the temple, you did not feel the passage of time because there was just so much going on, so much to participate in, the sacrifices, the offerings. Every family had to bring a Korban Chagiga. Everybody was participating. All the Kohanim normally during the regular year there was a what's the right word, a reshima in Hebrew. There was a rotation, there you go, of Kohanim that served in the temple, as well as a rotation of Leviim, of Leviites. But during the Chagim, everybody was on call, and it was packed. It was the place to be. People traveled from all over the country and left their houses unguarded, their cities unguarded. Everybody was in Jerusalem. Everybody's partaking in the Chag, and that is something that we can just dream about, and we can get a little bit of a taste by going to visit the Temple Mount over Sukkot. But even those that are not yet ready to go to Sukkot, there are wonderful organizations out there who do their best to make Jerusalem itself in the Old City. I'm thinking of one of our close friends, Kiryat Moadenu, that's very busy with that, where they try to help us revitalize this idea, this passion of coming to Jerusalem and recognizing that is the center of the world. That is where God wants us to serve and to celebrate His Chag. And that's something really, really special. So yes, on Rosh Hashanah, we can blow the shofar, and unfortunately we were not able to have the shofar on Har Bayit, and the police even made a big stink about those that tried to blow it on the eastern side. But even though there's no law that forbids it, but even still, that's something special, and that would have been amazing. But Sukkot on the Har is supposed to be the pinnacle, the happiness, the splendor, and something that we really hope to be able to experience very, very soon.
Yeah, it's really exciting. We're very much sort of looking forward to Sukkot. And as Rabbi Levi mentioned, our dear friends at Kiryat Moadenu have a massive hospitality tent in Sukkah. In the Rova, in the old city square, where, if you know where the giant menorah is, it's on that raised platform in front of the yeshiva, and you can go there all through Sukkot and get free drinks, free food. There's everything you may need for the holidays, kiddush. There's all the religious essentials. There's a place for mothers and children, and they even offer free diapers and pacifiers and everything that you may need if you're a large family traveling. And of course, it's costly, especially in Israel. We have large families. It's very costly for a family to come to Jerusalem if they live far away, or even if they live close with a bunch of small children. And the focus of Kiryat Moadenu is to provide everything that you would need during the festival, so you don't have to worry about yourself. So while you are ascending and praying and celebrating, ourselves and our friends at Kiryat Moadenu will be working tirelessly to nourish your mind and stomachs while you fill your hearts with prayers. And it's really exciting. And somewhere in the old city, and we'll certainly go on our Facebook page or on our website or Twitter, Instagram at High on the Har, and we'll be hosting a Sukkah this year as well in the Old City. Very exciting, and we'll be definitely, if you're in the Old City during Sukkot, me and Rabbi, we will be there each and every single day. If we're not ascending or standing online to reascend, you'll probably find us in the Rova at the giant Sukkah, or at our little Sukkah in the Old City, sharing the holidays together. And certainly, if this is a time that you would like to ascend, and you want to if you want to go up alone with your family, with friends, if you're a tourist or a visitor to Israel, we would love to bring you to the Har during Sukkot. You just go to our website, highonthehar.com, and you can shoot us an email and let us know, hey, I'm going to be there on this festival day. Can I come up with you? We won't really be taking scheduled tours during Sukkot because the lines are long and the schedule is not normal. Typically, we do tours at 9:30 and 1:30 p.m. Not 9:30 p.m., 9:30 a.m., and 1:30 p.m. But during Sukkot, if you let us know that you're there, we'll share our personal contact information with you, and we'll be able to get in touch at some point, and we'll take you up with us. Unfortunately, because of, like I said, because of the large lines and because of our Palestinian brothers and Arab brothers and sisters on the Har, we have no control over how anyone ascension can happen. But we will do everything in our power to take you with us. And I know that even on Tisha B'Av, me and Rabbi Levi were able to get ourselves up there 5 times, even though we were told by the priest after the second one we had to make room for other people. We still managed to get people up there and going, even almost being stopped at the door and just walking forward anyway. But we would love to have you. So if you're there, if you want to come to the hall or hear about the Temple Mount in the Sukkah, or if you haven't decided whether or not you want to go yet, come find us. Come find us in Jerusalem, and me and Rabbi will talk to you about the Holocaust, answer your questions, and quell your fears. Because as I've mentioned before, if your rabbi has told you that you can't go to the Temple Mount, I hate to tell you that you're wrong. We know the Holocaust. We know where the Beit HaMikdash stood, and we have a very conservative, very certain path around the Temple Mount that does not include any threat. Rabbi, do you have anything you want to add to that?
The only thing I can think of adding to that is, of course, Dr. Kronfeld doesn't like to toot her own horn, but she has just about completed our brand new website that's filled with all sorts of information about ascension, how one can ascend according to halakha, how to prepare oneself, how to make the experience the most spiritual and meaningful experience that you'll have. Remember, people, spend significant sums of money traveling to locations where they can feel inspired, where they can go out and pray, and there's some sort of tradition that prayer is accepted there if you're religious, and people spend a lot of time and effort doing that. And the one place that is set aside for all religions, mind you, as the premier site for prayer since the dawn of the Abrahamic religions, whether that's Judaism, Christianity, Islam, that this was the site of prayer, was and is the Temple Mount. So that is a place that one should definitely be looking to go and to utilize this spiritual experience. So I have a lot of thanks to Dr. Kronfeld for the beautiful website that's coming out, and hopefully it will be a resource that everybody will be able to experience and use, whether they're just curious about the subject or whether they're actually planning on visiting and they want to know how to do it and how to do it properly and how to get the most of the experience. And those things are not easy to put out, especially not on the level of professionalism that is being put out. And we have to say thank you to Dr. Kronfeld for her efforts in that matter. And we hope to see you all together on the higher. Kumu v'nal etzion abeit Hashem Elokeinu. Let us go up and arise to the house of God, our King and our God, our God.
Amen.
Well, let me get back on here for a moment. Go over there, sit that over there, and there we are. I appreciate so much you all being here. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you like to make a comment on the upcoming Israeli elections from an Israeli's point of view? I'm sure all of our listeners in the United States and Canada would love to hear your opinion. And then you're perfectly welcome to avoid the issue, but is there any commentary you'd care to make regarding Lapid's speech to the United Nations?
So to be completely honest, this is not my area of expertise, and therefore, but this is, in fact, we're very lucky. We have someone with us on this show who actually it is her area of expertise. And with that, I will wish you all good night, and I'll hand over the floor to Dr. Kronfeld. Please take it away.
Yeah, secretly, my expertise is not actually on the Temple Mount. That's Rabbi Levi. I'm just his sidekick. My expertise is actually in international relations and politics and elections, where I've worked on elections since I was 16. With that said, that doesn't make me an expert, because no one is an expert in politics. As they teach you in a PhD program, never predict anything about politics. That's lesson number 1 in any PhD program. Never predict anything in elections, politics, political science. With that said, I am very fortunate to work on behalf of a candidate here in Israel. I work on behalf of Otzma Yehudit and its leader, Itamar Ben-Gvir. And it is probably the greatest, most blessed opportunity I've ever had in my entire life. Itamar is a current member of Knesset. Chaver Knesset, and we look forward to the election on November 1st when he becomes a minister of Knesset. His name has popped up a lot recently. Our friends over in the United States may have heard recently that the egregious Bob Menendez, for whatever he is worth, called up Bibi Netanyahu and told him that the Americans are going to have a real problem having America as an ally if they seat Itamar Ben-Gvir in their government. Well, guess what? I just spent the past 5 years listening to the Democrats, and for full transparency, I'm a Republican. I just spent the past 5 years listening to the Democrats moan and complain about Russian interference in their election that stole it from Hillary, which it didn't. And now the former vice president of the United States is calling the former prime minister of Israel and telling him who he may or may not see in a yet to be convened coalition government in a yet to be had democratic elections. Well, I'm really sorry, but that sounds a lot like election meddling and interference to me. And the Jewish community in America should be outraged. They should be ashamed that their government is willing to tell the Jewish state what their policies and what their preferences and who their political figures are. Because if we're going to play this game, then I'm electing AOC and the rest of the terrorist squad to be removed from their congressional committees and removed from office. So, it goes both ways, but I wouldn't dream of doing that as now an Israeli citizen thinking about the future democratic elections to be held in America. I say this with extreme bias. I do believe in the bottom of my heart that what we will see in the upcoming election is Itamar Ben-Gvir, Betzalel Smotrich, and the religious Zionists right sweep the elections in a major way. And when I say this, it's a bit different here in Israel than it is in the United States. But by sweep, I say, they are a quote unquote minority party. They're not a big party like Likud. They're not going to walk away with 40 or 50 or 60 seats. But the fact that the polls are already showing that they're going to be walking away with 13 or more makes them an extremely important political player. That means there is not going to be able, no government is going to be able, no government is going to be able to be formed without including Itamar Ben-Gvir. So America can put its big boy pants on and realize that the Israeli people are going to choose their leaders. And right now, there is a very good chance that a whole heck of a lot of us are going to be choosing Itamar Ben-Gvir and the religious Zionists. And that's not because there's a fascism or a KKK or an Arab racism that's sweeping through the Jewish population. No, there is an awakening. Just like Jews are awakening to the fact that Temple Mount has been taken from us and that we have a right to reclaim it, Jews are awakening to a political fact that we have lost the two fundamental pillars that underlie the foundation of the Jewish state, and that is our religion and our Zionism. And it is only the religious Zionist, which I believe is truly in heart led by the power and personality of Itamar Ben-Gvir, that is going to take us where we need to go as Jewish people. I watch CNN, this fear of nationalism. Why should we be afraid of pride in our nation? That's what nationalism is. It's pride in our nation. And there is no doubt that that can be taken too far. But I can tell your listening and watching audience that I had the opportunity to work with Itamar for the past year and a half. And this man is as sincere and kind and good as they come. At the same time, he is a fighter and he is not going to let us down. So if you are an Israeli, you're going to vote Otzma Yehudit this election and help us, take this country to the next level and help us fight our enemies, help us instill rule and law, help us ensure that governance is abided by, help us fight our enemies at home and overseas, and most importantly, stand for Orthodox rights and take back the Temple Mount. That's what your vote for Otzma Yehudit will bring you. And if you have friends and family in Israel and you're not Israeli yourself and you can't vote in our election, I'm sorry, that sucks for you, but tell your friends and family to vote Otzma Yehudit. What you see in the American media, this nonsense about him being a fascist, it's ridiculous, okay? Do I look like the kind of young woman that would spend my days hanging out with a fascist? I guess that's up for debate, but I promise you I'm not. Itamar Ben-Gvir is the future of Israel, and I look forward to November 2nd when I wake up knowing that he is not just a member of Knesset, but he is a minister of Knesset.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to give you a moment to organize your thoughts, because I do want to comment on for you to comment today's solution. But first, we're going to take a break for a little bit of a station break and our sponsor. First of all, BDS. I'm a firm supporter of BDS. So please do buy Israeli products, donate to Israeli causes, support Israel, BDS. Another commentary I wanted to make is, as we approach the Yom Kippur, I wish everybody a very easy fast and a pious day. But as we head off to synagogue, coming soon to a Judaica shop near you is the concealed carry talit bag. Don't leave home without it. On that comment, I'm going to bring Dr. Kronfeld back on the screen to just hear her comments on the two-state solution that myself and Rabbi Levi are anxiously awaiting some commentary. So let's see if I could get that back on.
Well, it's simple. The two-state solution is dead. It's been dead a long time, at least in its iteration of the Oslo Accords. You said in the beginning, you said it's not about two-state solution. It's a one-state solution, and yeah, we want one state for the Jewish people. Right. But that doesn't mean that has to happen to the exclusion of others. And it doesn't have to mean that the Palestinian people have to get a short end of the stick. But what it does fundamentally mean is that Oslo is dead. The agreement that we have in place, these silly lines that are drawn, we can't move forward like this. We have to secure the biblical homelands of Israel and Judea and Samaria. And there are a lot of, unique opportunities that we can, pursue in lieu of the Oslo Accords. There's the New State Solution that's forwarded by the Miriam Institute, which says, all right, let's build a greater Gaza. Let's build into the Sinai. Let's give them the same amount of land in Judea and Samaria, in and around Gaza, through the Sinai, where nothing is really going on right now, but ISIS hanging out and shooting guns. There's also, there is the one state solution, where we absorb everyone into one state. Of course, it has its demographic issues, of which I'm not entirely sure if that would necessarily be a problem anymore, because just of last year, Jewish birth rates finally exceeded Arab birth rates for the first time ever in the history of the founding of the state of Israel. It wasn't by a lot; it was by like a quarter of a baby. I don't know really what that means, but our birth rates are rising, our population is growing, so maybe we need to re-examine what a one-state solution looks like. And then the final, there's the other opportunity that people talk about, like the emirate model. Let the PA collapse, and let the Palestinian people go back to the state of existence that Arab countries are used to all around the world, which is some sort of tribalism. That's not a knock. That's not a racist thing to say. That's not a stereotypical thing to say. But for centuries, Arab communities have lived in tribal communities. So maybe what needs to happen is that the collapse of the PA means that there's little like emirates and little fiefdoms that exist all around Judea and Samaria. And at the end of the day, the area still remains under control of the Israeli government, and they administer to their own communities with our support. But let me be very clear. Oslo is dead. Lapid is a moron. And I think a big part of what we're seeing in the press right now, this knock on Itamar, the fact that Menendez called up Netanyahu and told him that Itamar can't be in the government, I think that actually has a lot to do with the two-state solution. Lapid went up on the stand of the United Nations and made a complete fool of himself, which was totally unshocking if you live here and have followed his career. And he stood by the two-state solution. Why? Because he wants history, at least because he doesn't have any foresight. He wants history to say, that was the prime minister that stood for the two-state solution before, the real right-wing government took power again. Well, what does he think that we're going to do? That we're just going to rip up Oslo and kill all the Palestinians? No, we're going to look for a better path. And I think that him going up there and being a lackey of Biden, and saying that I stand for the two-state solution, something the failed former vice president of the United States also stands for. I think this whole orchestra of events that we've seen, from the UN to this knock on Itamar and the American press for the past few days, has to do with the fact that Itamar is the only person standing out there for a Jewish state. No matter what that state looks like, Israel is first and foremost going to be a Jewish state in its biblical lands as defined by God in the Torah. And he's very clear. God is a very specific person, right? When it comes to the Temple Mount, he lays out exactly where he wants what there. I want this beam here. I want this, this stone here. I want this guy to move this incense, and you got to burn this many coals, and you got to put the fire out. Don't put the fire out. He's very specific. And he's equally specific about the geography of the land of Israel. And we will not realize our place in this world until we secure the true land of Israel as it is. And again, I emphasize it doesn't mean it has to come to the exclusion of others being here, but we will create a Jewish state as God wanted it to be. And it will be first and foremost a place to secure the Jewish people for all time. And if you like us, then you can stay and hang out and enjoy our falafel and celebrate Sukkot with us in Jerusalem. And if you don't and you want to kill us, then get the hell out of Dodge, or else the IDF is going to come after you. Because as the sweep of the West Bank has proven, we know where you're sleeping, and it's usually in your mama's bed.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and perhaps Rabbi Levi would like to make some closing comment before I go and play Hatikva to close out the year. Rabbi?
Well, all I can say was that was awesome to listen to. I don't always get to hear the firebrand version of Dr. Kronfeld, so that was epic. It's not really my field, so but as someone who lives here, someone who believes in the future of the Jewish people, and this is the location for the Jewish people. There's nothing more that can be said about that. This is this is the place that we need to put all our focus in on and do our best to not only do the work that is needed. Like we just finished the year of Shemitah, and everybody invested and put in from the on a religious level into the land of Shemitah. But there's not just that. We also have to look at it from a nationalistic perspective of this is not just our land to do the mitzvot in, but also to do the mitzvah of living here, of being part of it, of taking it to the next level, working really hard to make sure that that we're able to keep this and sustain what's going on here, because this is the most important thing that we have, and we don't want to ever look back and regret that we did not take advantage of the abilities afforded to us. So, as my dad likes to say, there are two type of chazanim that you can't complain about: yourself and the one who said yes after you said no. If we refuse to take care of our country ourselves, we cannot expect our enemies to do it for us. So those of us that are sitting on the fence, those of us that are not yet, that are supporters of Israel but are doing it from afar, we implore you, the only way that we're going to be able to move forward is with your support, with your help. Come here, move here, move to your homeland, be a part of our next steps going forward. Come here. There's no future elsewhere. Our place is meant to be in the land of Israel. When Bilam tried to curse the nation of Israel, and God changed his curse into a blessing, he blessed the Jewish nation that they would live in Israel by themselves, serving God. And there's no greater opportunity to do that now. So yes, I understand everybody has their personal reasons why they're doing what they're doing, but remember, the future of the Jewish nation is in Israel with the temple, and may we all be blessed to see that in our lifetimes. Amen.
Amen.